Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
Indie Alaska is an innovative weekly web series capturing the diverse and colorful lifestyle of Alaskans. Real stories of everyday Alaskans at work and play. Supported in part by Alyeska Pipeline Service Company.
It's never too early to set expectations and goals for your child's education. The AKwx Savings Plan provides opportunities that can help you reach your educational savings goals. Save in Alaska. Study anywhere. There is more information available by calling 1-888, the number 4, and then Alaska. This message sponsored by the AKwx Savings Plan.
The National Weather Service.
Over the past few decades, the helicopter aeromedical industry has proven itself to be a very effective means of saving the lives of those who are critically ill or injured. However, during the relatively short life of our industry, far too many aeromedical programs, its crews, and sometimes its patients have fallen to tragic accidents. And the highest percentage of these crashes have been caused by human error. Now, often this fact leads us to ask the question, what was the pilot thinking? Why did he act the way he did? And what's even more confusing is why are the same mistakes still being made over and over again throughout our industry? As you go through this training and watch the scenarios, we suggest that you heavily concentrate on the error chain depicted in each scenario and how these steps ultimately lead to a crash. Ask yourself, what were the contributing factors? Were there opportunities to break this chain? Was there a specific culture in a program that affected the pilot's decision-making? And finally, were there direct and/or indirect pressures that influenced the pilot's decision? And finally, before we begin with the scenarios, there are two major points to note. First, none of these scenarios are contrived. Each contain multiple contributing factors and influences taken directly from industry accident and incident reports, as well as confidential surveys recently completed by your peers concerning practices and safety problems within our industry. And second, this video would not be possible if it were not for the support of aeromedical helicopter operators, hospital programs, and their crews, as well as all of the other supporting agencies named in the closing credits of this video. These companies donated their equipment, personnel, and the display of their logos to demonstrate unsafe safety practices in the sincere hope that taking a proactive approach through this training will help to significantly improve the safety record of this worthwhile industry. Tim is an experienced aeromedical pilot. His VFR program works him on a 7-on, 7-off schedule, alternating each tour with days or nights. He was currently on his 6th night of a 7-night tour. This was a particularly long week with no flying due to lack of requests or marginal weather forcing the flights to be turned down. This didn't bother Tim too much since he wasn't in the flying mood. However, the lack of activity was taking its toll on the medical crew. By this point in the tour of nights, they were bored, restless, and tired of having to do make-work projects. In spite of the inactivity, Tim still didn't get much sleep during his nights on duty. He was concerned about his financial situation, which was strained due to a new home he and his wife were having constructed. In an attempt to alleviate some of his money concerns, he was working a second job during his off weeks and when he was on nights. Most of the work was for a friend of his who owned a fly fishing retail store. Tim was making good use of his outdoor skills and knowledge in retail sales by performing many functions at the store. He had worked there on this day up until it was time to leave to report for his duty shift at the hospital. The call came in at dusk for an inter-hospital transfer back to Tim's program base. The weather check revealed that the conditions were at best marginal VFR, with scattered rain showers and thunderstorms in the forecast. The weather was legal, but questionable. Additionally, the weather information at the location of the referring hospital was minimal. The doctor at the referring hospital was becoming concerned as to why it was taking so long for the helicopter service to decide whether they would be coming for the patient. He was a privately rated pilot and decided that the conditions were acceptable and phoned the helicopter pilot directly to advise him of this, and that this patient was in serious need of services they could not provide. Tim briefed the medical crew, and they suggested just having a look and turning back if it wasn't good. Tim decided to give it a try, and the helicopter and crew departed for the referring hospital. The weather didn't change, but it was not good. The workload was high, and Tim was continuously deviating around the rain showers. Upon arrival at the referring hospital, the weather was a little worse, but he found the hospital pad and landed without incident. While the medical crew was packaging the patient, Tim became increasingly concerned about the weather. When the medical crew came out with the patient, it was obvious to Tim that they were going to have their hands full. The referring hospital had waited until the very last minute before they called for more advanced help. Additionally, Tim realized that the patient was a very close friend of his. They loaded the patient, and Tim started the helicopter and departed. The workload remained high, and more deviations were required. The medical crew were oblivious to the conditions. Their hands were too full with the patient, whose condition was worsening. Now Tim has a new concern: fuel. All the deviating has taken its share of his normal fuel, and he is unsure of his ability to safely make it back to his hospital without seriously compromising his fuel reserves, and there were no airports along the way to obtain fuel. Uncomfortable with the fact that he might land back at his hospital with only 10 to 15 minutes of fuel remaining, he is considering diverting to a nearby community hospital with a helipad. This would require the patient to have to complete the trip by ground. However, he was also concerned about the criticality of this patient and the urgent need to get to his hospital. Tim elected to continue on to the medical center.
Hello everyone, and thanks for staying with us for Saturday's edition of Alaska Weather. On the satellite, you can see several systems affecting the state. This plume of moisture coming northward here, low pressure moving up along the eastern Gulf Coast, and rain coming into the Panhandle today. Amounts ranging from a net picking up about 1 1/3 inches in the last 24 hours to Cordova getting about ½ inch, just under ½ an inch, and then 2/3 of an inch falling in Juneau in that area there, and then back toward Yakutat, of course, having heavier amounts than that. Some of this getting into the southeast interior, and down off the picture here, this is right in this area, another developing storm system that's forecast to pull northward and become rather intense here tonight and bring storm force winds into the southern southeast coast areas here along the south coast late tonight, with gales coming northward. And by tomorrow should be gale or storm warnings out for the eastern offshore area and as far north as Cape Fairweather there, with gales on up to the coastline here and then dropping back. Otherwise, we have this front, colder air coming down from the northwest, and the frontal boundary here pushing eastward, kind of hitting a divergent zone of the wind there. So just a slight push to the east in this area, something of a wave there right over the Brooks Range and then off to the northeast, with areas of rain falling along the eastern Arctic coast today. And then back in the colder air with the northwest flow coming around in the southwest quadrant of the low center there off toward Barrow to the northeast. Mostly snow falling this afternoon and fog along the central Arctic coast back to the southwest here and of course into the Brooks Range. You can see it downslope there clearing out a little bit, just some scattered showers here down to the south, some clearing here over the west central interior, but pretty cloudy day here over the Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta. Showers scattered around south central Alaska along with some sunshine scattered around. Winds are on the light side, some scattered showers up the valley here and then on to the northeast across the eastern Tanana Valley, 40-mile country. Some fair amounts of sunshine here over Bristol Bay, and partly to mostly day there for Kodiak Island, and kind of gusty on the winds over the southeast coast, but those expected to increase dramatically late tonight and during the day tomorrow. Out to the west, high pressure here over the northern Bering Sea, that circulating that colder air down into the northwest interior, and another system back out here to the west, bringing some gusty winds and periods of rain into the western Aleutians. And on the chart today, there's a position of that front out there to the west with some rain pushing into the Shimia area, but not too bad here over the AKwx regions. You can see some clearing skies, some high stuff right through here due to the winds aloft coming up in this direction. Center of high pressure, actually a ridge here from the Russian Far East all the way down and off the chart there, with one center there just south of St. Lawrence Island, about 1,012 millibars, but not much of a gradient out here at all. Northwest winds 10 to 20 miles per hour across the Alaska Peninsula and the southeast Bering Sea, all the way up to the north there into the Kotzebue Sound area. And then the low clouds, fog, occasional snow up there on the Arctic coast and into the North Slope, with the warmer conditions still to the east there, rain over toward Kaktovik and Barter Island. And that extends all the way down along this frontal boundary, right down along the Brooks or the Alaska Range, and then trails off to some scattered showers into the northern Bristol Bay zone. This low near Kodiak Island, not too much with it, just a few scattered showers here with the Kenai Peninsula down into the Aleutian Range, and then it kind of cuts off here and the Alaska Peninsula, just some variable cloudiness with a few sprinkles, but the rain with this system occurring from Cordova and possibly McCarthy all the way down across the southeast coast. For tonight, this next storm comes on the map here, moving northward, excuse me, and that's going to spread gale force winds in late tonight, possibly storm force winds up along the south coast, but it really won't be until that low center gets a little farther to the north. Then you'll get the forcing for those storm force winds, possible gusts of 70 miles an hour late tonight, definitely tomorrow. And during the afternoon hours, that'll be pulling northward, and the winds will be increasing from south to north along the entire southeast coast. Otherwise, over the northeast interior, we have that low center in the front, roughly in this position here, getting kind of hard to pick out at this time. But the wind's a little more northerly here, along and behind the front to northeast, and more light and variable, or maybe easterly or southeast in advance, but quite light here. You can see no pressure gradient at all in advance of that front. There will be some scattered showers along with, again, some scattered periods of sun here over the southeast interior. It could be a pretty nice day, or it should be a pretty nice day here. South central Alaska, Cook Inlet, possibly into Prince William Sound. A few showers here right along the coastline down to just east of Kodiak Island. I think tomorrow most of that will stay just to the east or just catch the eastern coastline there, maybe Fognac Island. High pressure holding over the northern Bering Sea. And behind this front, again, a lot of clearing back here with a little chillier temperatures and cold enough up there to the north, especially from the Brooks Range on up to the Arctic coast for snow showers scattered out the flurries, a little heavier amounts onto the east, and looks like a pretty wet 24-hour period here coming up along the northeast part of the state, Brooks Range, on up across the eastern Arctic coastal areas. In fact, there are gale warnings out tonight for the eastern Arctic coast through tonight up there. Easterly winds up to, well, gale force 35 miles an hour, 35 to 40 miles an hour. More northerly and lighter back here to the west. And small craft advisories here with this low pressure area. Could be some minimum gales out there farther to the west, but not much of a wind producer, not much of a rain producer either. Here as this front moves eastward, it's going to weaken quite a bit. Just some variable cloudiness, light winds for the eastern Aleutians, Nikolsky and Alaska, on up to the Alaska Peninsula. Light variable winds, partial clearing for the Pribilof Islands. And then tomorrow, again, this storm center pulling northward here down to 989 millibars, pretty active front. So again, the storm force winds advancing up to as far north as Cape Fairweather, at least currently in the forecast there, with full gales all the way up to the north and eastern Gulf Coast there. Rain spreading northward well into Canada. The front coming across the southeast coast, and when this low center pulls northward, that's expecting the strongest winds to occur. Northern areas of the southeast coast will be a little more variable and lighter, just calling for north winds at 10 knots tomorrow for the northern portions of Lynn Canal, for example. But we've got gale force winds coming into even the southern inside water areas here. So a really windy, wet day coming in late tonight, continuing through tomorrow. Back along this trough now, really this trough just signifying the upper level trough that's pushing eastward here. Really difficult to find the front now. But over the Tanana Valley from the Alaska Range, should be cold enough. Freezing levels coming down, at least for some mixture of rain and snow in the showers there, especially in the early morning hours, and possibly just all rain, especially below about 1,000 to 2,000 feet in the afternoon. But periods of snow up there over the eastern North Slope, Brooks Range areas, maybe a break along the Arctic coast and more snow mostly off the coast. Some showers back to the west, clearing out ahead of this next system sliding eastward here along the north coast or the Arctic coast of Russia, beginning to affect probably the Bering Strait tomorrow afternoon, and maybe even spread a little light rain in toward Tin City and Teller late in the day, but pretty much a nice day here over the western part of the state from Bristol Bay. Actually even the Alaska Peninsula, a little bit of low stuff here on the Bering Sea side. Otherwise, pretty good day there, but all the way up to the north, kind of cool, but mostly sunny skies. Winds northerly 10 to maybe 20 miles per hour. Farther east in toward the Alaska Range, much lighter back to the west. Some clearing, light winds again for the Pribilofs, light winds for the eastern Aleutians. And this front really stretching out and just about dissipating, but not altogether, but some sprinkles here coming eastward to probably Atka. Scattered showers, a little breezier back to the west. And then that low pressure area now tracks all the way up to under the label by Monday afternoon, and the front well off to the east here and out of the area, but upper level trough here into the Gulf of Alaska, so southwest flow will keep some surges of moisture rolling into the panhandle. So in spite of the fact you have high pressure down here with it ridging northeastward, you could see some pretty good showers at times, especially over the northern areas, scattering out maybe some sunshine down across Prince of Wales Island and maybe even over to Metlakatla, Ketchikan, and those areas. Numerous showers here along the North Gulf Coast, more scattered up over the Copper River Basin. High pressure ridging into the interior. Should be a sunny day here for south central Alaska. Some lingering clouds up along the Alaska Range with a few scattered showers. Scattered showers mostly offshore here, southern Prince William Sound and the Gulf, but Kodiak Island, mostly sunny, a few clouds. Winds not too bad. Winds light and variable all across this area. North to northwest, maybe 10 to 15 or 5 to 15 for Kodiak Island. Here's that next system sliding into the northwest coast there with gale force winds possible depending on the exact track and intensity of that storm as it comes in. Looks pretty good at this point for at least some gale force winds. Warmer air sliding up ahead of the front, so precipitation start out in the form of rain, but when the front moves through, colder air wrapping back in behind, becoming mixed, and then just all snow from Kivalina all the way up to the central Arctic coast. Offshore flow in advance of that. Pretty nice day for the eastern North Slope and Arctic coastal areas as well. And mostly sunny skies out over Bristol Bay, and then this front, what's left of it here, bringing just a chance of a few scattered light showers into the eastern Aleutians. A little windier and showerier back out over the western Bering Sea from about 8 on out. And temperatures today look like this across the Panhandle. We'll see in the lower 50s, 49 Skagway to 57 at Wrangell, 61 down at AKwx, and a 54 over Cordova. We'll see in the mid to upper 50s here along south central Alaska, 59 in Anchorage, 57 up at Gulkana. And the Tanana Valley, warmest to the east, that's Eagle with 64. They were the state's high today with 50 at Fairbanks and rain there. They picked up, let's see, I think it was about 1/4 inch of rain or 0.21 inches there. And back in the cooler air, 43 degrees over there at Hoosley and 47 at Bettles. Up along the Arctic coast, right near freezing or at freezing, these are all 4 p.m. temperatures. 32 at Barrow, same thing at Atasuk, 41 over at Point Hope, 36 at Kaktovik and Deadhorse, 34 in Atuvik, mid-40s across the northwest and the Seward Peninsula, near 50 at Nome, otherwise 40s. You can see all the way down across the Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta, eastward to about the McGrath area, 48. Sleet Mute, the same temperature, but up 10 degrees from that here across Bristol Bay. 50 to 55 for the Alaska Peninsula, lower 50s for the Pribilofs and all of the Aleutians. Low temperatures tonight, of course, coldest back up here to the north and northwest, upper 20s to lower 30s, mostly in the 30s here through this swath of the state, to 40s south of the mountains, and lower 50s for the Panhandle, and 45 to 50-ish there for the Aleutians and Bering Sea. For the highs tomorrow, mid-30s, mid to upper 30s from the Brooks Range northward out to the coast, mid-50s over the eastern interior, 40s back to the west, mid-50s for Bristol Bay, and possibly even some areas here in the yellow, they're pushing up towards 60 degrees. Definitely over the southern southeast coast, upper 50s, lower 60s there, a little cooler up to the north. And for flying weather, IFR in the eastern Arctic coast, pretty good here through the interior, some marginal VFR along the Alaska Range. IFR, of course, with the front, but a narrow band of that rolling on through, pushing northward throughout the day. And all the IFR mostly out to the west and north of the Aleutians, just a narrow band coming across the central areas. Anatuvik, marginal VFR, same forecast for Adigan. Lake Clark and Merrill, pretty good VFR. And also rainy looking good with VFR. Could be marginal on the western approach to start with, but it'll become VFR by late morning. Windy, occasionally marginal. Isabel and Mentasta, look for occasional marginal VFR, both passes there. And for Tanita, VFR. Portage, VFR. Chilkoot and White, starting out VFR, becoming marginal VFR tomorrow afternoon. The IFR may push in there tomorrow night as the whole system shifts northward. Or IFR, yeah, IFR will be moving in there as the system pulls up. So deteriorating conditions for Chilkoot and White throughout the day. Freezing levels here, the cold trough right through here with the upper level trough axis moving eastward. Quite a gradient here along the southeast coast and a strong south to north jet there. Perfect location for storm development down in here with the cold air coming southeastward, warm air coming up to the north, and that's just what is going on. Higher pressure and a little bit warmer temperatures, freezing or a little higher freezing levels out here in that area. And icing, occasional light, moderate chop, or occasional light to isolated moderate with the along the southeast coast. Upper level trough, high pressure moving off, a trough moving through. High pressure coming in, but this one will flatten this out and move eastward here into the first of next week. Look for 20 to 30 knot winds here into the interior, but the strong winds along the southeast coast up to 60 knots, and turbulence, occasional moderate below 4,000 feet along the Panhandle, and moving along southeast up to 55 knots here along the southeast coast, and then dropping back to gales late in the day. And then much lighter winds coming in for Monday there, light and variable over the inside water. Starting out south 25 knots there with the pressure rises behind the system that pulls off to the north. And then those will drop off in the afternoon. Pretty light here along the coast, mostly from the southeast. South central Alaska, 20 to 25 knots here, Kodiak Island on up to the central Gulf Coast. And maybe some 25 knotters early here through Kamishak Bay. Then for Monday, light variable winds here all across the northern areas, about 15 knots here for the Kodiak Island marine zone, except Shelikof Strait. Bristol Bay, north 15, same thing here along the Alaska Peninsula. In fact, everybody north 15 sees 3 to 5 feet. And no change on the direction for Monday. Not much change on the speed either, 10 to 15 knots from the north. Out in the Aleutians, initially, while the front's still holding together, southwest small craft advisories here over the western areas, light and variable with a ridge pushing across the eastern Aleutians. And then what's left of that front will be right in this area. Light and variable winds there for the Fox Islands. Southwest 15, small craft advisories in a narrow band through the west central areas. And for the southwest coast, north to northeast, 10 to 20 knots, strongest south of Nunivak Island. Variable becoming south late tomorrow there for the northern Bering Sea and St. Lawrence Island. And then for Monday, south 15 for the Pribilofs, and winds pretty light and variable. Again, trough coming across St. Lawrence Island, southwest, back to the west there, northeast and south at 10 for the northern Bering, southwest at about 10, but Kuskokwim Bay, south of Nunivak Island in this zone, pretty light from the north. South winds in the afternoon coming up to 15 knots of the Pribilofs, but they'll be light and variable until that time. And then for the Arctic coast tomorrow, again, the gale force winds tonight, dropping back to 25 knots during the day tomorrow, and northeasterlies 20 to 25 on the west coast, kind of a variable condition. And then that next system pulling in, if it continues on track, look for northwesterlies 25 to 30 knots behind it, northeast 35, more lighter and variable as one system pulls off and what's left of a ridge tracks eastward here up along the Arctic coast. And then for tonight, we've got this system, snow, colder temperatures coming in behind this front in this position, big storm rolling up, storm force winds coming up into and along the southeast coast, gales even moving into the inside waters tomorrow, as we'll see as this thing tracks northward off the coast. Strong front moves inland with rain heavy at times, better conditions.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.
Indie Alaska is an innovative weekly web series capturing the diverse and colorful lifestyle of Alaskans. Real stories of everyday Alaskans at work and play. Supported in part by Alyeska Pipeline Service Company.